Hello, thank you for all of your comments, questions and theories on all of our cold cases so far. We're going to be updating on all the investigations later in the series, but right now we've got a deeply dark mystery from Victorian times. A mysterious assailant who brings fear to the streets of London. He moves with terrifying, seemingly supernatural speed and escapes the police by leaping over rooftops, which earns him a chilling nickname, Spring-Heeled Jack. He leaves behind a trail of destruction. Londoners are afraid to open their door after dark. But is he a real person or something paranormal? It is time to get investigating. I'm Danny Robbins, and this is Uncanny Cold Cases. Welcome back. Today, we are unboxing a mystery that has remained unsolved for almost 200 years. It's an incredible story, like something from a nightmare brought to life, but backed up by multiple witnesses who went on record in the media of the time. Dozens of people claim to have seen Spring-Heeled Jack, this dark, frightening figure with apparently supernatural powers. But who or what is he? To help us prowl the streets of Victorian London looking for evidence, we have our brilliant experts. Forensic psychologist Dr. Kieran O'Keefe, the team skeptic, and writer, parapsychologist and queen of Team Believer, Evelyn Hollow. Kieran, we are about to touch down in Victorian London. What should we be looking out for?
Well, I think this is an amazing case. And as a skeptic, when I'm confronted with a fantastical creature, I always think that it's hallucination. But the lovely thing about this case is there is physical contact. People get hurt. And so therefore, we know it's not a hallucination.
It's a case with real jeopardy, real stakes. Evelyn, it's a case that's really hard to categorise as well. What is this? Is it a haunting?
Yeah, I don't know, because originally when it starts off, we're thinking, Victorian London, it's dark, it's spooky, people are being scared. We think, is it, a ghost story or an urban legend that spans out of control? Are we thinking, okay, is it some sort of serial killer? But every single time we think we understand what it is, it shifts. It's a monster that keeps changing and changing and changing. It's really difficult to categorise.
Okay, well, prepare to write a new chapter in your nightmares as we start our investigation. The story begins in October 1837. London is a rapidly growing metropolis, expanding ever outwards from the Thames, shrouded in a perpetual black smog and current rumours of a spate of attacks by a mysterious figure that some claim is a ghost or demon. They're said to have taken place in Barnes, then a village on London's southwest side. And on this particular night, a young carpenter, Mr. Jones, is making his way home from work just a few miles away from there. He knows that the rumours are probably just made-up stories, but he can't help feeling a little uneasy as he makes his way down the morbidly named street, Cutthroat Lane. And then, from out of nowhere, a cloaked stranger jumps out at him from the shadows. Jones falls back in shock. The stranger raises his hand, and in the streetlights, Jones sees the glint of what appear to be large metal claws with razor-sharp tips. A swipe across the torso leaves Jones's clothes torn, blood seeping through. Startled and hurt, Jones scrambles backwards and gets a full view of his attacker. The figure is clad head to toe in what appears to be gleaming armour. On his feet, a pair of bright red shoes. His face doesn't look quite human. Jones could swear his eyes almost glow red, and most frightening of all is his smile. Whoever he is, he seems to be enjoying the terror he is inflicting. Then, as quickly as the assault begins, it is over. The figure leaps away into the darkness, and Jones is left sprawled on the cobblestones, panting, feeling lucky to be alive. Then he realises something. He pats his pockets, his money, his keys, his watch remain untouched. Jones wasn't mugged. He's been assaulted by someone or something with just one motivation: to strike fear into his heart. What the heck is going on? Evelyn, we said that we're going to hear about multiple witnesses in this story. Now, Jones is not the first person this happens to, potentially. We've got other documented witnesses, and yet he is the first one anybody pays any attention to. Why is that?
Because all of the other ones were women. Not that that's any different today, but in Victorian London it was so common that it's not even reported about in the newspapers. And also when the women are attacked and they give this fantastical seeming account of this mugger with sort of glowing eyes and sharp claws and potentially bouncing away over walls, they think, oh, they're hysterical, they're hallucinating, they don't listen to them. But this changes when a young lad is attacked, and not only was nothing taken, so like you say, it's not a mugging, which is very weird, but he gives the same report with the same shocking description, but he's a man, and therefore anything he says has validity, and suddenly they start taking it seriously, and that's when it hits the paper.
It's a sad fact, isn't it? Some victims are listened to more than others. And Kieran, certainly after the Jones attack, this becomes a huge story, doesn't it? It's across all the newspapers.
It does, and there's a weird incident that happened with Sir John Cohen, who's the Mayor of London, who actually publishes a letter from a Peckham resident talking about this supernatural attacker, and he basically is requesting the authorities to do something, but it's a joke. He does it to make fun of the whole incident, but it completely backfires because, of course, now you've got, the stamp of genuineness from the Mayor of London, and it kind of, creates genuine concerns amongst the public.
Panic on the streets of London. And Evelyn, what is this? This creature, this figure, this entity, whatever you want to call it? Jones describes it as being like a man, and yet it's got this kind of inhuman characteristic of these glowing red eyes and these massive claws, like some Victorian Wolverine.
Yeah, it's a really, really bizarre one. It is literally like Victorian London Freddy Krueger, essentially. So if you look at the migration patterns at that time, there's a lot of people coming from rural areas into London for work. And so in rural areas, you still have beliefs that are perhaps prior to Christianity. So some pagan beliefs, some older beliefs connected to the land. And you do see aspects of animism. And this is beliefs in things that animals and, people essentially merge. So for instance, in Nordic paganism, you'd have the berserkers, warriors who take on the spirit of a bear, essentially. In China, you've got something called the hopping vampire, the Jiangshi, which was essentially believed to bounce around through the mountains, essentially. It was when people died whilst doing building work in the mountains and their corpses were all tied together. And of course, as they were walked home to rural China, they would be bouncing up and down. Very weird. But it's one of the few other cases where I can point to something being spring-heeled, if you like. One of them is spring-heeled Jack, and the other one is the Chinese hopping vampire.
You've got to love a hopping vampire. Super sinister. But let us hit the cobblestones of Victorian London again, because just 2 months after poor Jones the carpenter was thrown bloody to the ground, 15-year-old Mary Snowden is walking home through the cold January air in Stepney, East London. She rounds the corner and walks along the large outer wall of the local cemetery when the terrified cry of a woman in distress cuts through the air. Mary sprints towards it and is presented with the most frightening sight she has ever seen and will ever see again. There is not a woman in sight. Instead, in front of her is an impossibly tall man. On his head, some kind of shiny brass helmet, maybe military. From the top, a huge plume of feathers pokes out that makes him seem even more imposing. And on his body, beneath a cloak, he wears a tight-fitting bodysuit that clings to him like sealskin. And at the end of his arms are razor-sharp metal claws, just like the ones that Jones described. Her knees go to jelly because this must be Spring-heeled Jack. But then she notices 2 men flanking Jack. They wear long black coats and white gloves. What a relief, Mary thinks. They're policemen. But relief transforms to panic as Mary realizes they are not policemen. They're not arresting Jack. They are helping him escape. And Jack then disappears with his 2 accomplices into the gloom. After that, things are about to kick off in explosive style. 3 weeks later, 18th of February, in Limehouse, East London, 18-year-old Lucy Scales and her sister are walking home down a street called Green Dragon Alley. Turning a corner into the alley, the 2 girls are accosted by a tall, thin man blocking their path. He launches himself at them, revealing those huge claws and glowing red eyes. On his chest, Lucy makes out the letter W, but has no idea what this could stand for. Jack opens his mouth wide, and from the gaping hole, incredibly, impossibly, jets of blue and white flame shoot out, scalding both girls and leaving behind an acrid smell. Jack then vanishes Lucy and her sister remain slumped on the ground, stunned. Have they just survived an attack by a fire-breathing monster on Green Dragon Alley? Strike a light. Evelyn, are we starting to feel that Spring-Heeled Jack, whatever he may be, has a sense of irony here? Cutthroat Lane for his first attack, and then Green Dragon Alley for this new one.
I mean, is it a case that was all of Victorian London just named really bizarre, whimsical names? Or is this something or someone that has a sense of humour, that has a sense of irony, and is purposely picking these scary lanes to go down? The core aspect here feels like it's designed to scare. So why wouldn't you pick Cutthroat Lane? Why wouldn't you pick Green Dragon Alley to attack someone?
Interesting detail about how the women are lured out by the sound of a female voice here. That's different to the Jones attack.
It's definitely different. So the two options, I feel that either one, you've got mimic phenomena, which is a supernatural type of phenomena where something mimics the sound of usually someone you know, usually a family member or a friend.
We talk about that a lot in poltergeist cases, don't we? Do you feel that's at play here? That shifts this into something that definitely feels paranormal, if so?
So to me, it would be more so if it was a voice that they recognised, because normally when we talk about that in poltergeist cases, it's designed to bait someone. So it doesn't feel like mimic phenomena to me.
Kieran, we talked in one of our earlier cases, the Black Monk of Pontefract, about whether a paranormal entity can hurt a human being. Now, whatever Jack is here, he hurts, doesn't he? I mean, this fire breathing that we hear about, I mean, this isn't a little puff of smoke. We talk about the witnesses being burned, scalded here.
Yes, we cannot simply explain it away as hallucination. We cannot simply explain it away because of, like you said, a puff of smoke or something ethereal. We've got tangible contact here. And so the problem is, as a skeptic, is I would be going down that line of saying, is there some human interference? Are we dealing with a human actor, an individual that is deliberately causing this harm in some way?
It's quite a hard thing to get your head around, though, isn't it? A human being who can breathe fire in this way.
Yes, it is, but there are a couple of explanations that we could go down. So one possible explanation is this lovely thing called palinopsia. And palinopsia is this idea that you have kind of an after effect of an image that you carry on seeing. And in the dark and kind of, foggy area of London, if somebody has a flame and then you see the after effect, I could quite easily see somebody misinterpreting the flame coming out of their mouth. Now, before you jump in and say, yes, that could explain it, but it's visual, and if it's a visual hallucination, how do you explain the burns? You're right. I could discount it because of that, but then there's another explanation. Officer Lee, there was a police detective that really got involved in this case because, of course, he thought there was a criminal out there that was causing harm. He went to London Hospital and he saw a demonstration of somebody blowing through a tube that was filled with spirits and chemicals such as sulfur and causing it to light and produce blue flame. So in Officer Lee's idea, he thought that it was some sort of prank. And of course, in some of the accounts, you get kind of a shiny helmet of some sort that would be obscuring a tube that's coming out of the person's mouth. So there's a couple of possible explanations.
So you think this could be like a Victorian jackass?
Yes, it could be. Why not?
Okay, so much to think about in this case. Are you feeling team skeptic or team believer? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. We're going to be doing case updates on all of our cases later on in this series, exploring your theories, trying to answer your questions. But for now, let's go back to Victorian London because things are about to get really disturbing. It is the evening of 20th of February, 1838, and terrifyingly, Spring-Heeled Jack is about to start making house calls. We're in a cottage outside Old Ford, another village to the east of London. The front doorbell rings at around 9:20 p.m. 18-year-old Jane Alsop looks at her parents and sister, unsure whether to respond. What could anyone want at this hour? But the ringing comes again, this time with an even greater frantic urgency. Jane wraps herself in her housecoat to protect against the cold, opens the door and tries to make out who is summoning her at this hour. By the gate, she sees a tall man wearing a long coat. There's something on his head, but it's too dark. She can't quite make it out. Jane calls out, "What do you want?" "I'm a policeman," he barks back to her. "For God's sake, bring me a light, for we have caught Spring-Heeled Jack here in the lane." Jane reacts quickly. She had heard the stories of Spring Hill Jack and his merciless attacks. She'll do whatever she can to aid in his capture. She rushes into the house, fetches a candle, returns quickly and hands the light to the visitor. Which is when things take a sinister and terrifying turn, because Jane gets a good look now at the man in front of her, and this is no policeman. His face is contorted in a demonic grin. His eyes glow red like coals set in his pinched face. On his head is some kind of helmet. His body is wrapped in a skin-tight suit, and there is some kind of lantern-like object strapped to his chest. And as he sees the terror rise in poor Jane's eyes, he laughs loudly. He is enjoying seeing her fear. And then, opening his mouth wide, Jack, for it is him, vomits forth blue and white flames into Jane's face, burning her cheeks. Then he leaps forwards and grabs her under one arm, beginning to claw at her face and clothes with those metal claws, leaving deep cuts across her face and body. As she desperately tries to fight back, Jack pulls clumps of hair from her scalp, shredding her house coat and underclothes. But now, Jane's screams have roused the others in the house, and her younger sister, Mary, rushes out to see what the commotion is. Jack's appearance is so distressing that Mary finds herself unable to move, frozen to the spot in fear. So it is Sarah, Jane's older sister, who finally wrestles her sister out of the clutches of this demon, dragging her inside. Jack continues to rain furious blows down on the front door, using his razor-sharp claws to splinter the wood. It's utterly terrifying, and Jack's frenzy is only curtailed when the rest of the Alsop family arrive at an upstairs window to shout and summon the police. It's only then that Jack finally flees into the night with lightning speed, his cruel laughter echoing into the darkness. The Alsop family, huddled by their door, are traumatized. But Jack is not done. Just a few days later, he makes another house call, this time to Turner Street in Limehouse. He slams on the door, insisting on speaking to the owner of the house, Mr. Ashworth. A servant boy answers and reels backwards as he sees Jack rushing towards him. The boy claims that Jack's cloak is embroidered with a letter W, that same letter that Lucy Scales and her sister saw on Green Dragon Alley. By now, word of Jack's activities has spread across England. Jack is now appearing as far north as Warwickshire and as far south as Devon. And in each case, we see supernatural feats of athletic power combined with ferocious, unprovoked attacks. And in each case, also from the description, this appears to be the very same man, the same kind of attack and the same escape, leaping away with those springy heels. Holy springy footwear, Batman. Kieran, I cannot get that supervillain analogy out of my head. And any supervillain needs a logo. We have got the letter W here. It's come up 2 times now in the case. Is it a clue what the W is going on?
I think it could be a clue, and it's something that's put forward by the newspapers and also the police at the time, that effectively what we might be dealing with is a prankster who's part of the aristocracy at the time. In the same way now we talk about the Bullingdon Club and Boris Johnson and others trashing restaurants
or
and
doing horrible things to a pig's head. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Doing horrible pranks.
Don't Google that. Yeah, go on.
Doing those sorts of things, but back at then, the prime candidate was this individual, this hellraiser, Henry de la Peur Beresford, who interestingly was also the Marquis of Waterford. W.
Oh, and so what? He was a kind of posh boy gone wrong. He was out there causing trouble in other ways.
Exactly. He was known for doing pranks, and, you know, the fact that you've got a prime candidate here and the W is quite key in his name, Marquis de Waterford, means that you've got a potential suspect.
Really interesting, because inevitably we draw certain parallels with the Jack the Ripper case, you know, later, but still that idea of an assailant terrifying London. in that case, there's all these different theories about who Jack the Ripper might be. There are theories here about who Spring-Heeled Jack might be.
Yeah, there is. And I mean, Kieran's right in that the prime suspect was Beresford. He was really well known to be an absolute menace. However, unfortunately, to put a small sharp pin in Kieran's balloon, at this time, Beresford had settled down, he was reformed, he'd married, and he'd moved to Ireland. So he wasn't in town when this was happening.
Whatever's going on, whatever he is, he seems to be thriving off the fear that he's creating, doesn't he, Evelyn? Is that odd? If it is a human being, why is he not trying to steal or do something more? Why is it just this enjoyment of terror?
Yes, I think that's the big question at the base of it, because if it's something supernatural, we can talk about escalation. We talk about it in poltergeist cases, where people feel that if you try to ignore it, it gets worse. It almost demands more attention. And if you believe that it is a person, if it's some sort of psychopath going around, what happens next? Because we're now at the point where we're turning up at doors in the middle of the night and we're snatching young women out of the doorway and attacking them. So what comes next?
He's changed his MO. He's also potentially, Kieran, expanded the area where he is committing these attacks. We're talking about things being reported all across the UK now. And I guess the big question is this the same Spring-Heeled Jack, or is this what we would now call copycat attacks?
Well, I think it could be either. From a forensic psychology perspective, it could be an individual that, suddenly realises all of the attention that's focused on London, all of the policing that's going on in London. So he's going to find new ground, new places where he can find victims. Or it could be a copycat. We could have individuals in other parts of the country thinking, there's a perfect opportunity for us to do the same thing. And some of those descriptions do alter. But I'm going to throw in a little postscript for you. And that is a more recent case that I've heard of back in 1980 in central Oxford, where an individual phoned up the police because they had been attacked by what they described as a vampire. And in their description, they talked about very, very long, sharp fingernails, red eyes and fangs. When the police respond to this call thinking it's some drunk individual and it's just made up, they encounter the victim and he points out this weird vampire. The police chase after this assailant, and the individual jumps over a 10-foot high fence. And you've got the reports from both of these police officers, and an MO that sounds exactly like Spring-Heeled Jack almost 200 years later. It's just very, very odd.
Things are certainly looking suspicious, but we are far from finished yet, and I'm afraid to tell you, it is all about to take a much darker turn as we enter our final chapter. Over the next 30 years, confirmed sightings of Spring-Heeled Jack become less frequent, but the story never quite disappears. It's almost certain that some of these are copycat attacks. Jack is a popular cultural figure by now. There's a play about him on in the West End. But some of these attacks still defy rational explanation. In 1870, he is seen jumping over a 6-foot fence in Peckham in London by a group of workmen. In 1877, Jack, or someone like him, tall and supernaturally fast, is shot at as he runs away over the top of a Roman arch in Lincoln. The bullets don't touch him. But one of the saddest purported sightings is in the crumbling tenement blocks of Jacob's Island, a slum in the poor area of Bermondsey in South London. A young sex worker, Maria Davis, is walking across the thin walkways which cross the open sewer system. And it's here that she happens upon a very familiar cloaked figure. Jack grabs hold of Maria and breathes his white and blue flames into her face, his metallic claws scratching her skin as she tries to wriggle free. But then, this case takes a sickening turn as Jack raises the poor girl over his head and throws her into the open sewer system. Maria can't swim. After a few minutes of helpless struggling, she sinks beneath the surface and drowns. Was Maria the only person to die at the hands of this supposed supernatural attacker? Or was it easier to blame a phantom for a murder that would otherwise never be solved? Jack and his mysteries disappear into the night. He is never seen in Britain again. But in 1938, in Massachusetts, in the United States of America, 100 years after he was first seen in London, there are reported sightings of a strange creature said to be terrorizing the residents of Provincetown. He is said to have flaming eyes and a cackling, maniacal laugh. He moves with incredible speed and spits fire, and he has a preternatural ability to leap impossible distances. What a dark and strange case we are dealing with here. Kieran, what happens to poor Maria is absolutely horrible, isn't it? And it can't help but feel like a prototype for that later Victorian Jack the Ripper.
Yes, absolutely. And you're dealing with two cold cases, ultimately. Spring-heeled Jack, who we feel may be supernatural, and then Jack the Ripper, who we feel is a human element. But who's to say that Jack the Ripper, which is an unsolved case, but that particular individual was not inspired by the events of Spring-heeled Jack? So you've got a connection here where you've got a human element, in my mind, in both.
Evelyn, we've discussed that human element, the different theories, the different possibilities of it being even a group of people behind this. Mm-hmm. Having looked at all the evidence, do you feel that there is potentially some paranormal activity at work there?
So I think for me, I definitely believe that it's people, either one individual or certainly a group of individuals who are at the heart of it themselves. I think that man is the most dangerous animal, especially one that's been given wealth and power and then desires more. Are there individuals at this time period in Victorian London who are interested in achieving that through supernatural means? Yes. And so this era of London, this interest in magic and supernatural means and powers is pretty rife. So I think it's a very weird case. I think there are people at the heart of this case, but I think they are people that are so evil and are so interested in fear and power that they become supernatural themselves.
All right, uncanny community, I would love to hear your thoughts. Is Spring-heeled Jack going to be haunting your dreams tonight? Those red eyes, those long metal claws. I'm certainly going to think twice if anybody comes to my door asking for a lantern. Let me know all of your theories, your questions for Kieran and Evelyn as well. You can email me uncanny@bbc.co.uk or find me, Danny Robbins, on social media. I'm across all the platforms. We all are. Really, we love to hear from you, love to communicate. If you've got a cold case you think we should look at, get in touch as well. We have so much more to come for you. A new episode will be dropping every week, and this time next week we'll be headed up to where I grew up, the northeast of England, for a poltergeist case in the seaside town of South Shields in the early 2000s that will definitely not make you be glad to be beside the seaside. Until then, sleep well. Don't have nightmares.